I'm back! Did you miss me? I was gone for like 6 months, so I better get back to making videos before I regain the compulsive need to remodel everything. Ghostbusters is a well-beloved classic of the mid-80s, and it's really not hard to see why. It's hilarious, full of dry wit, and headed up by 4 actors who bring a hell of a lot of charisma and charm to their roles. It's a shame the sequel wasn't that great, and the 2016 version was the biggest pile of I've ever seen. I didn't really care too much for Afterlife when I first heard about it being in production. The original actors were too old, and there was no bunch of child actors who could recapture the same charm and chemistry as the original cast. And really, they don't, but I was still pleasantly surprised by Afterlife. The film delivers a delightful passing of the torch story, which serves as an extension to the original movie, rather than a replacement or telling a new story that has got nothing to do with the original. It's full of nostalgia and references, but nowhere near as reliant on them as films such as The Force Awakens. I think the film's qualities can largely be attributed to the passion behind the camera by the director Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the original movie. A lot of the film also pays respect to Harold Ramis after his unfortunate passing. I have to say that Ghostbusters Afterlife has handled the death of a beloved actor much better than a lot of other franchises, such as the inclusion of Tarkin in Rogue One, or the way they handled Carrie Fisher's death in Rise of Skywalker. Yes, I'm never going to let that go until the end of time. The story revolves around the mystery behind Egon's death, and it's a very central aspect, rather than bringing him back from the dead with CGI like nothing has happened, or tacking it onto the side of the movie with reused footage. It isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There are issues, inconsistencies, and missed opportunities which would have further elevated my opinion of the film. But, as it is not horrific. I do recommend it, and I had a fantastic time watching it. It is certainly better than the film that shall be named, because it never happened and never existed. No! I find it interesting that because of Ghostbusters 2016 being completely ignored by this film, it upset the original cast of the 2016 film, such as Leslie Jones, who took it on herself to make tweets like this one.
So insulting. Like, fuck us, we didn't count. It's like something Trump would do. Gonna redo Ghostbusters. Better with men, will be huge. Those women ain't Ghostbusters. Such an annoying dick move. I don't give a fuck. I'm saying something.
I find this tweet rather interesting for a few reasons. Leslie's main issue seems to be that what she did was erased, and she found that insulting because she didn't count. I find this funny considering that's exactly what the 2016 movie did to the originals, so it's okay when she does it. And it's so bizarre that she tried to bring up Trump and make it about her bloody gender. Funnily enough, the best 2 characters in this film are women. The problem wasn't your gender, it was the fact that your movie was bloody awful. I am going to start going into spoilers about the films. If you haven't seen it already, you have been warned. Now, my first issue with the story is the characters. You have the mother, her love interest Ant-Man, the geeky podcast kid, the brother, his love interest, and Phoebe. The brother is flat, uncharismatic, and underdeveloped. His entire part in the story is chasing after his love interest, and both of them being dragged along with the adventure. I will say that while this character is flat and underdeveloped, I can see the aspect of him chasing a beautiful woman to be a fantasy for younger audiences of the film, which might endear him better to them than I would be. His love interest is just kind of there. She tags along because we needed a 4th Ghostbuster. She does have charisma with dry wit and is endearing. She ain't bad to look at either. She's kind of the Winston of the group, and she's the more grounded everyday person, especially compared to the rest of them. Though her and the brother are both very passive protagonists who are just dragged along by the plot. The Geeky Kid podcast is a little annoying, and is only developed that he's weird and insane about ghosts. He's more of a story device and supposed comedic relief. The closest role he takes upon is the role of Ray, who's the more clueless. To be honest, I would have been happier without the inclusion of this character, especially since he doesn't have much significance. And he grates on my ears something awful. The mother is a bit more interesting. She's Egon's daughter, who was affected pretty badly by her father leaving her and her mother to travel to the other side of America when she was very young, and this caused her to have abandonment issues, resenting her father until she learns the truth. This causes conflict between her and her daughter in the story. Then you have her love interest, Ant-Man, who's a geologist and a fan of the original movie and works as a summer school teacher who lets the kids watch movies while he's recording seismic activity. He's really just a replacement for What's-His-Face in the first movie, but he's much less annoying, but equally as unfunny. His only real place in the story is to be the idiot who releases the gatekeeper and gets possessed by the key master, and to have relations with the mother character. But then you have the best character, Phoebe, who's the main protagonist and the granddaughter of Egon. She also takes the role of Egon as the most intelligent and most socially awkward of the group. At first, she's characterized a lot more like young Sheldon. Blech. She's a little annoying as she pushes people away from her by acting superior and patronizing towards her elders and the other kids. But she starts to grow out of that later in the film as she focuses on unraveling the mystery of what happened to her grandfather and why he abandoned everything to come to the middle of nowhere. During this, she starts to reflect her grandfather Egon a lot more, as she starts to come out of her shell, finding a passion as a Ghostbuster. It's not an easy ride though, as she does stumble a lot along the way. And I have to say that McKenna Grace does a great job acting in the role. Phoebe and her mother are the two most well-developed characters in the film. I just wish the other characters were a bit more developed. They don't really share much chemistry with each other either, unlike the original cast. There was no game show host of Peter Venkman to really bring the cast together, but my only issue is that I think it might have taken away from Phoebe, who's the star of the show, and it's difficult for a socially awkward kid to be the charismatic leader of the group. I can't be too hard on the movie, considering a lot of my issues with the side characters. It's not easy to bounce them all out and give them all depth, like you would in a TV show such as Deep Space Nine. But in the original movie, we endeared to the cast due to their charm and chemistry, which is what's lacking from these other characters. At least you could have made some of them a little less annoying. Speaking of not much development of characters, as this movie works a lot more as an expansion, it's a huge shame that there were no further development given to Gozer or Yvonne Shandor. It would have been a good opportunity since both of these characters were established in the first film. Yvonne Shandor himself is not only mentioned in the movie, but is in fact in it, but he gets killed almost instantly, which makes me question what was the point of bringing him back at all. I also have to question from a mechanical standpoint of what the point of bringing Gozer back, just to defeat them again. If they expanded more upon Gozer, then this would have justified their inclusion a lot more. Back to the main story, I do think that the passing of the torch story was the best way for the movie to continue. It's even what some fans thought would have been a better alternative to the 2016 movie, since they knew the cast was too old to reprise their roles, and another had unfortunately passed away. Making the main character the granddaughter of Egon and having her discover the mystery behind his death and why he abandoned his family was a great way to include Harold Ramis' death into the story while paying respect to him, because it's not just a tacked on aspect to the story, it's central to the story. I did also enjoy the return of the original Ghostbusters when they finally show up at the end. They very much helped the pacing of the final battle. It was very nostalgic seeing them again, and I'm glad we got to see them together for what I'm sure will be the last time, since they are getting far too old for these movies. Ghost Egon was a really good way to bring back the character while hiding the uncanniness of the visual effects, which we used to bring him back. Something which I suppose is a little more literal here. But his only visual ghost appearance is a really good send-off for the character as he helps Phoebe and has a really emotional moment with his daughter before leaving this plane of existence. The Mini Marshmallow Men were a pointless inclusion in the story. It seems like a random requirement in films these days that you need some kind of cute thing that's tacked onto the side of your movie for toy sales, like those bloody porgs. The movie is absolutely full of fan service, which some people have criticised it for. Fan service, I think, is only a problem when it gets in the way of the story that you're trying to tell, or tries to replace quality of writing with fan service. Exhibit A, The Mandalorian. I do not, however, think that the fan service in this movie, it gets in the way at all. I think it would hold up enough without it. Fan service should always be more icing on the cake, which is exactly how it is here. You have a pretty alright story, iced with fan service. Another issue I had with this movie was that none of the humour really landed for me. I don't remember laughing once. But other than that, there were rare instances that humour not landing distracted me from the story. Mostly because the jokes were kept short, which I do appreciate. Having shorter jokes means that if it doesn't land, then the movie keeps going on. And if it does land, you still found it funny. Compare this to the 2016 movie, where all the jokes are incredibly cringe, awkward, and drag on far longer than necessary, which make it fail even harder. It's also something I've noticed in YouTube comedy. Some YouTubers are really unfunny and their humour is just really awkward, and it drags on far longer than necessary, which makes the scenes even more painful to watch. The original Ghostbusters comedy mostly came from the banter, which was short. There were a lot of smaller moments which help uplift the tone of the scene. None of them were really dragged out. If you didn't laugh at Peter Venkman failing to pull the cloth from under the table, it just moved on with the scene rather than lingering on it. One of the things that did not go unnoticed by me was the film's similarities to The Force Awakens. It features a female protagonist stepping into the shoes of the past protagonists. As a familiar power rises, the old main characters have grown old and are disenfranchised and have disbanded. One of them is even living isolated for unknown reasons. It does make you think what The Force Awakens could have been, and proves that the story that it wanted to tell was possible without perfect Mary Sues contradicting what came before, and it turns out all you needed was talented writers and creative passion, not just a mountain of money and blank checks. As a fan, I'm happy that we got this movie, which removes the sour taste of 2016 from my mouth, and it reignited my passion for Ghostbusters, and made me rewatch the film and video game, which is rare these days. For modern installments, they usually end up killing my passion for them, which is what's been happening to Star Trek since 2009, and Star Wars since 2015. It could have been more polished and improved in a lot of areas, but it will do for me. And I hope that they don't ruin this by creating more sequels, because I really doubt it would have worked in the same way this did. I wish I could do a more in-depth Mauler-style review, going through the story with like a fine-tooth comb. I'm sure there are more qualities and problems with the film, but I do not have access to rewatch it. That, and need to release this video before the end of 2021. That didn't happen. Now, to finish this video, as you probably know, these videos are a lot of work. The setup certainly was. I spent a lot of money on concept artists and months modelling all these assets and trying to work out how it should look. This is all out of my own passion, and obviously I make nothing back from these videos. And over my break, I lost all my patrons. If you want to give back to the channel, you can donate through Patreon for little as $1 a month. It is appreciated. Donations will go to things like new channel art, which I do need, merch designs, and more concept art which will be used for future animated shorts. On top of the future animated shorts, in this new universe I eventually want to make a short film, but I don't know how far that is away considering my lack of funds. But I will tell you that the script is very deep in development. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on with the channel, I post updates on my Twitter and Discord. Those links are in the description. Now I better get going. Thank you all for watching. This has been Commander Shiney of Alliance of Navy Vessel Intervention, signing off.